it's me, Zenobia Darling. You're listening to hashtag Rockstar Life, the Coffee Break podcast. Let's go. Where the hell's my cold brew at?
Ooh, what's up, guys? It's me, Zenobia Darling. I have beamed down in Las Vegas with an astrologer to the stars, a fabulous, fabulous person, Andy Bellatti. How are you today?
Hello. Pleasure to be with you today. I'm really excited for our conversation.
Yes. So this is a coffee break. So what are you drinking? You drinking coffee? You drinking water?
I am doing an iced hemp milk latte because I am vegan. So I'm all about my non-dairy milks. Yes.
Excellent. I love vegan. So
yes. And all my non-dairy milks are unsweetened. I don't like sugary drinks. So unsweetened hemp milk.
I hear that. Well, I'm the same way. Like I started bodybuilding. So it's like I've been cutting out sugar, more protein, and like I'm vegan-ish, so it's, I'm like leaning there, but I don't know. It's been an interesting journey, so all good.
Yeah, the term I've heard for that is flexitarian.
Ooh, that's a good word. Flexitarian. I'm gonna remember that because I'm gonna call myself that, and then like my vegan friends are gonna be like, oh.
Exactly.
All right, so let's get into this. So who are you? How do we know each other? How'd you get into astrology? So I don't know. Like, I feel like I've known you for what, like 3-4 years. So I've always followed your blogs.
Yeah.
So
thank you. And I think you found me I was a guest on Jess Rothschild's Hot Takes Deep Dives podcast.
Yes.
I think that's how you found me.
Yes, because I'm a huge podcaster and I'm a huge podcast listener. And of course, Bravo and all that fun stuff. Plus, I think Jess is obsessed with Madonna like I am. So
she is. Yeah, she's a Madonna super fan. Yeah.
Oh my God. I saw her in December and I'm still blown away by it.
You're still processing and metabolizing the audio visuals.
God, that celebration tour, that was high theater. That was like, my gay heart was screaming and crying too. Because I was crying during Live to Tell, so.
Oh, and I heard, that's also where there's a very sentimental part of that song. It's like a tribute to everybody who has died to HIV and AIDS, right?
Oh yeah, and of course it's like Robert Mapplethorpe, Keith Haring, all my artistic idols, and I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. So you wanted to know how I got into astrology, kind of like that whole thing?
Oh, yeah. So tell us your journey. So, I mean, because I always say astrology finds people. It's the same thing as like, I don't know, like I'm big in the paranormal. It found me. I can't help it. I feel like you're the same way with it.
Yeah. I mean, my earliest memory is I remember being 6 years old and my mother was into astrology. She actually now like she's in her 70s is an astrologer, but back in the 80s when I was young, she just had a passing interest in it. But I say that because I grew up in a home where there were astrology books all around me, and I remember even as a young child being 6 years old and being very drawn to that material. Like at age 6, I knew that I was a Gemini. I knew that if you were born on December 30th, you were a Capricorn or whatever, and then everything got bumped up a little bit because when I was 14, for my 14th birthday, my parents got me a reading with an astrologer as a birthday gift. So that was my first time understanding that there was a birth chart and there was a lot more to it. When I was 18, this is the year 2000, that's when I went to college and I started teaching myself just about astrology and more. And then I was living in New York at the time and I was getting readings from astrologers, some of whom took me under their wing, almost like as an apprentice. And then that just set it off. And then from there, I started, reading for friends. And then my first job out of college, word got out that I was into astrology and people started requesting me to do their charts. And of course, at the time, I was just starting to learn. So my whole thing was, well, take me to lunch. This is back when you could get lunch for like $9.
Oh, I missed those days.
Take me to lunch. Yeah, it was like 2 decades ago. Take me to lunch, pay for my lunch, and I'll do your chart. But that was really good for me because that was how I learned so much. One thing I always tell people who are learning astrology is at some point you got to start actually practicing what you're learning. And that's when you get a lot of insight. And then long story short, as the years went on, it was always a hobby. And then in 2019, I made a decision to attempt a full-time astrology career. And here I am 5 years later.
That's amazing. That's very similar to like my like interest and my obsession with the paranormal and how like I've made the transition to like professional paranormal investigator and all that stuff. It's like I was always around it as a kid. My parents are cool with it, and then it's just the more I did it, and that's something you have to actually like experience. You have to go into the places, experience what it is to be around spiritual activity and all that stuff. So I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, and it's funny because, although I have my bachelor's in journalism, I have a master's degree in nutrition, astrology is the thing that I have studied the longest because, I started really at 18. Now I turn 42 next month, but I started at 18. And then basically for like 26 years or 24 years, it's been a constant in my life. So I kind of always joke that I have a PhD in astrology.
I love it. Because astrology, I had someone tell me like this was a few months ago that it is like, it's kind of foo-foo-y like that, but also there's something to it where like it hits you and you're like, wait a minute. Like it's one of those things like I think all that media, it's like, there's something to it. And like for people like me, like I really love astrology. I like, I'm always knowing what planet's in retrograde, what's coming up, what's happening. And that's just how I am. And I'm like, there is like a rhythm to it. There is like I don't know. And there's like the spiritual thing to it. Like it definitely has like a higher power quality to me as well. So
yeah. And one thing that I really appreciate about astrology in particular is that although every astrologer may present the information in their own unique way, we all are coming from the same foundational knowledge. So in other words, I don't get to make up what I think the moon in Sagittarius means, which is good because I always tell my clients, anything that I say in this reading, you can validate in a reputable astrology book or website. So it isn't just me, because you told me something about your father 5 minutes ago, now I'm conveniently dropping it here. It's like, no, Google this or look it up in a book and you'll see that it's exactly what you told me about what happened with your father when you were 6 years old. That is what that means, and it's in your chart.
Yes. Because that's what we were discussing, because it was like there is like a scientific basis or some type of like intellectual basis in it. Whereas some of the others, I mean, the paranormal stuff I do has that, but like for the most part, it's like, it still has that like quality to it, which I love. Yeah. And you come at it with like no bullshit, which I appreciate, because some of these Instagram accounts, some of these people resharing shit, I'm like, can we not like a retrograde? Like we're in a retrograde right now. I'm like, it's not doom and gloom. The eclipse season, like we're all not going to go like be killing ourselves in a field somewhere. Like we're actually going, it's going to be fine.
Yes. Yeah, and I always say, there's with my moon being in Virgo, I'm very no nonsense, no bullshit. And what I also don't like is there's the two extremes. One, you were just talking about the people who make it seem like Mercury's going retrograde, do nothing for 3 weeks and all that nonsense. But then I also equally dislike this whole thing of like, some astrologers talk about a new moon, like, there's a portal opening for, the consciousness to rise. And it's like, give me a fucking break.
Oh
like,
my God.
There's still going to be wars. It's like the reality is that nothing is going, and this whole talk of like, we're all going to elevate. We're not.
I mean, it's like life happens, shit happens, you deal with it. There's retrograde shit that happens when it's not in retrograde. There's, it's like you got to deal with life on this planet as a human. Like, let's not forget that.
Yeah, and that's why one of my go-to sayings, I always say, astrology should enhance your life, but it should not run your life. Even as an astrologer, there's a limit to just how much you let this completely take over your life, because that's not healthy.
Yes. Now, you have an intuitive side to it as well, too. Like, I know, like, I've had readings from you, and there is, like, it's almost like a psychic reading, although it's not the psychic reading, but you actually come at it from an intuitive side too, as well, in addition to like the research and stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting because I often say that when I do a reading, and to be very clear, I'm not a psychic, I'm not a channeler, I'm not a medium. So when I say this, it's not through that lens, but it's almost like when I do a reading, it's almost like my mind goes into some, I don't know, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, whatever it is.
I love
but
it.
It goes to a place. Yeah, it goes to a place where I sometimes just, I describe it as downloads. A lot of times that'll happen in a reading without me even noticing it, is that I'll be talking about something in somebody's chart and I'll give an analogy and I'll say, for example, it would be as if, and the analogy I give often, so I'd be like, that's actually exactly what's happening for me. So I'm tapping into something, but I don't know what it is. I'm not connecting to like anybody who passed. I'm not doing anything like that. But I think I do pick up things intuitively as I'm doing readings. Yes.
I love that. I love that you can talk about it, because I have met astrologers that are like, oh no, this is not that. And I'm like, they're like, when you're giving a reading for somebody, like you're gonna like, there's something there. And that's how I can kind of judge a good astrologer from one I'm not clicking with, is because when I can see that, because like, you know, I am a psychic, I do have that, I am in touch with the spirit world, and it's like, I can feel it. And when I don't feel it, I'm kind of like, we're good. Whereas with you, I could feel that. And then also you gave me a reading, and it was like, I think it was on your podcast like years ago. And it was like, it was so accurate, but it wasn't like I don't know, like sometimes it can be a little too accurate. I've had that happen before where people like have been asking about me, like just here in Baltimore, and it's like, okay. But with you, it was like accurate, and it was like, wow, that's really good.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Because, you know, I often say that my goal with astrology is to make it practical and useful. Mm-hmm. So I always want everybody who I read for to walk away with clarity and some kind of knowledge of what's ahead. And and although I try to be gentle and kind, I also say I'm not in the business of telling people what they want to hear. Now, I'm not going to suddenly throw a bucket of cold water on you and traumatize you, but it's also, I have to be honest with what I see, because there's no point in me telling you it's all going to be unicorns and rainbows only for the next 6 months to be really difficult. So
it's going to be like, you're going to be going through a difficult, like, transit, just buckle up and deal with it.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Because otherwise, also, if I were to tell people what they want to hear, that would ultimately hurt me, because they're going to be like, well, none of that came true, so I'm not going to see him again.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. I've had that. Yeah. I've had that happen with psychics though, but it's oof. So you're in Las Vegas. So you said you were in New York. Like, how long did you live in New York? Because you have like a East Coast vibe, which I dig.
I know. Thank you. I do. Yeah. So I was in New York for 10 years, from the age of 18 to 28, which I think really is like shapes you. So I do feel very East Coast-ish, even though there's a lot about the West that I also like. Mm-hmm. But yeah, New York totally cemented a lot of my identity.
I love it, because that's something where, like, I don't know, because I've really stationed in Baltimore. Like, there's no other place like it. It's like, I definitely am a Baltimore creative, but I do miss the West Coast. I miss like the sun. I miss like, I don't know, like I miss people are nicer there, whereas I like people can be gritty here, and it's like, I miss that. And I don't know, but I appreciate when people have like the good mix of both. Plus, you're a Gemini, so it works.
Exactly, and I'm one day before you. I'm May 29th.
Oh, that's true. Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah. Wow, that's fun. All right, so let's get into the astrology of 2024, because I was reading your blog. I feel like there's some stuff in the works. You said something that really interests me that I feel like I just need to like bitch about. Like not bitch to you, but like just bitch because it's the Real Housewives. Like you said that like you kind of were picking up on they were waning, and I'm kind of like, I can see that. I'm not interested anymore. I'm tired of them putting out like this heteronormative hell of these people's lives. I'm like, I'm over it. I don't know. Like Real House of New York City, the reboot. I fucking hated it. Dubai, I like seeing Caroline Stanberry, but I'm over it. Like, I'm not like Beverly Hills, like Kyle needs to go. It's just, there's so much where I'm like, I'm over, like, I'm getting really over this. Like, I'm just, you know.
Yeah. And we're even seeing it with Vanderpump Rules, how like this latest season is just a total snooze.
Yes.
And a lot of it has to do with Saturn and Pisces, because Pisces is all about things that are glamorous and things that are, you know, a little bit more, there's more artifice around it. And when Saturn comes around, which Saturn is a planet of reality checks and no bullshit and really looking under the hood, everything that feels not authentic starts to really feel inauthentic to people.
Yes.
So that's why we're seeing like the Housewives, and a lot of the criticism is that people are like, this no longer, if you compare Roni season 2 to season 13, season 2 feels like, oh, these women actually knew each other and they weren't just playing things up. Now it's like you watch it and you go, well, clearly this is happening because this person knows that if they don't start drama, they're not getting invited back next season. So everything and that's what's happening to these shows. And I think the connection with the audience is being lost.
Yes.
And
yes.
The only one exactly what it's about.
Yeah, like the only franchise I really keep up with now is Miami, because I feel like they're still playing the old school like Housewives playbook that I love. Like, you know, I'm just nowadays I'm like, you know, and I study reality TV and I study that theater, and it's like I'm watching and I'm like, there's too much producer manipulation. These people are going on studying the Housewives. I can see that it needs to move on. Like, whereas Miami, they're still doing like some messy bullshit that I'm like, that would have happened like 10 years ago and I would have loved it. And I think that's why that's all, because all the other ones I'm like, we're good. Like Vanderpump Rules, I used to be ride or die, and I'm like, bye. The Valley, again, hetero hell. I want nothing to do with it. I don't know. I don't want kids. I'm gay as fuck. Like, I'm good. I'm good. And they get a gay wearing a wig, which I can clock a mile away because, you know.
Right. And I think also what we're seeing with Saturn and Pisces is this shift where all things Hollywood, you know, everything is coming out.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, everybody's being exposed, but also even what's really interesting to me is how even the clout of Hollywood, quote unquote, royalty is no longer what it once was. Like, think about who Oprah was 10, 15 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And how now, I mean, Oprah has lost all influence. Like, nobody even, if anything, she gets criticized for being so out of touch by everybody now.
Yes.
So that's very Saturn and Pisces, you know, where people are just tired of the artifice and people being out of touch. And nobody's impressed anymore by these obscene signs of wealth. Now people are saying, this is actually a problem.
Oh, yeah. No, I totally agree. Because it's like, I mean, I was ride or die Oprah, and then I watched her Ozempic special, and I'm like, Oprah does not do it anymore. And I'm like, she's also like, you're freaking like you have $2 billion. Like, go hike a mountain with Gail or something. It's like shit like that where I'm like, this is done. And yeah, I get it. And I also think it's because with like influencer culture, people are aware of the game, and people like random people who I don't even know are like famous. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? Like, some of the drag queens that are coming up, like, who are you? Like, you go to their Instagram and they have like, I don't know, like 150,000 followers. And I'm like, what? Like, it's crazy to me. Whereas I just think the old I think it's all dying. And I feel like that's a good thing.
It is. Yeah. And also we are seeing, because Pisces also rules things like influencing. We're also seeing the reality of that where, you know, people are not getting paid as much. There's starting to be more laws and regulation with very Saturn around influencers and being more open about when things are sponsored and things of that nature. So that whole game is just starting to change. I mean, if you think about all the makeup influencers,
oh God,
they're all right.
Yeah.
I mean, they're also like, they're disappearing.
Yeah. Like, no one, like, I mean, I think Jeffree Star will always be there. He's a mess.
Sure.
But like a lot of them, like, I remember that it was so hyper focus on their drama and like them all causing it because they knew that it all like it led to their brand stuff. And now it's like, who are these people? I don't know.
Exactly. So I think we're seeing, and a lot of this also has to do with, which is starting this year, but it'll be for decades. But as Pluto going into Aquarius, you know, that's very much globally a revolutionary influence. So a lot of these people who have been famous for decades, like, you know, like Diddy. I mean, Diddy also has stuff happening in his chart with Mars. He has a Pluto transit. Ooh. And that's why all the secrets are coming out.
And I mean, we've all been hearing about Diddy Wendy Williams has been talking about that since like she was on the radio. Right. So that's why it's like, this stuff is not like all the stuff that's coming out. Like, if you've really been paying attention, you're not surprised. I wasn't surprised with the whole Nickelodeon stuff that just came out. I wasn't surprised when like Bill Cosby and Harvey Weinstein came out years ago. And it's like, pay attention. People have been talking about this stuff forever.
Yes. And finally now I think it's that combination of Saturn and Pisces, and then Pluto having its last few days in Capricorn, where Capricorn is about the established authority. Pluto kills that and destroys it. Mm-hmm. So it really is a whole new beginning. And, you know, I find it interesting that this election that's coming up is going to be the last one for people of the silent generation or whatever they're called.
Yeah.
Like this is the last dying breath of all these people.
Yeah. Which I was going to get into the election because like I can tell like, I don't know, like Vegas might not have it, but like here in Baltimore, it's like people are freaking in like an anxious mess about it. Like you can feel it. And also I like where my hometown is, it's more conservative. So you have like, I have that side. And then like at my work and when I'm in Baltimore, it's like, I get the other side of it. I'm like, I'm good. Like I want to go into like a hole until like December.
The thing about the election, and I'll write more about it when we get closer to it, but looking at both of the candidates, none of them have very good charts. So it's like even if Biden wins, for example, I don't think he'll last a full term.
Yeah,
and I'm not predicting death or anything of that nature, but neither of them have very good transits coming up. So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I think it's just going to throw a lot of things into, I don't want to say turmoil, but the election after this one will be, brand new people, brand new faces.
Yeah,
like
and I think a whole new, like I definitely can see like some Aquarius like revolution stuff happen. Not like revolution like a French Revolution, but like I can see where like there definitely is going to be like a reshaping of stuff. Because I definitely think like the old way is dying for sure. Like I can definitely feel it. I mean, I'm close to DC, and it's like, of course, I hate DC, but we won't go into that. So yeah. And then I have to ask you. So the Key Bridge here collapsed. Traffic has been a fucking nightmare. Like, because I have to commute on 95, like to the west side of Baltimore, and it's like that. The Key Bridge collapsed on a full moon and on a lunar eclipse. So I'm like, is there something about the planets? Do they have any like? Do they say anything about that? Like, would you know of like, or did you? Because like I just find it fascinating that it happened on those days, and I also think there's a weird energy in Baltimore right now. Like, there definitely is like a new like creative resurgence kind of popping up here. So I don't know. It's fascinating.
Well, what's truly fascinating is that, and this is where, because a lot of and I'm not saying anybody's doing it wrong, but a lot of astrologers were looking at like the astrology of that day. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, they were saying things like, which is not technically wrong, but they're like, well, Mars was in Pisces and Pisces is water. I'm like, well, yeah, but what you really need to do, which I didn't see anybody else do, is you have to look at the chart of Baltimore, Maryland. People forget that cities have birth charts.
Because I know the United States has one that people have been talking about because like Pluto returns or something.
Yeah, exactly. So I always say it's not just people who have birth charts, cities, countries, companies, everything has a birth chart. So what's fascinating is when you look at the chart of Maryland, which the city was born July 30th of 1729, two things are really uncanny. One is that this particular event happened during, obviously Baltimore is, centuries years old. Mm-hmm. So it's not the first time it's happening, but it had a Saturn return when this happened.
Okay. That makes sense.
So there's that.
Yeah.
And the fact that also during this time, transiting Neptune, which is water, was squaring Baltimore's Venus. So there was a challenging Neptune transit. And that's where we can talk about. And here's the thing, too, that somebody will say, well, wait a minute. If astrologers can see this, why couldn't they predict it? Frankly, it's because I don't think to ever look at the chart of Baltimore, Maryland, just for fun. Yeah. Had I maybe done that, I would think like, oh, wow, okay, and to be clear, I wouldn't have said March 26th of 2024. I would have said January to April of 24 has this kind of vibe.
Yeah.
But again, because I never studied the chart of Baltimore, I would never think to make that prediction.
Yeah.
But when I saw that, I was like, oh, well, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, because it was one of those things where I'm like, I just saw it happening and I'm like, I just wonder, because I also am pissed because, like, I'm sure you're familiar with the Mothman legend, like the cryptid Mothman, where he was there with the Silver Bridge collapse in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. I'm like, has Mothman been in Baltimore and like for the past year and no one's told me? I haven't seen him. So like, it's just kind of me doing comedy, but I'm like, like I would have liked to seen Mothman. Like, I feel like he missed a prime opportunity to come to Baltimore. And then I'm like, there has to be something at work here.
Which, by the way, slight tangent. The Mothman movie was so disappointing to me.
Oh, it was
Did you see the
horrible.
movie?
And horrible. Like Richard Gere, okay, but like it missed the mark completely. I'm like, have you been to Point Pleasant?
No, never.
It is worth the trip. I went, I think like, this was like 2 years ago and fucking loved it. Actually went to the TNT and like, we went Mothman hunting, but it was during the day. And I'm like, I had none of my equipment. They have like a museum and the town's like haunted as hell. I really like it. And like, it has that like creepy, spooky Appalachian vibe. Like it was, and I was in heaven because I love Mothman. I would say he was like my Batman, or like my Elsa from Frozen.
Now, based on your work and your intuition, is Mothman a cryptid? Was Mothman a large owl? Like I'd love to hear your take on this.
Like, well, I kind of joke because I would say Mothman's my sugar daddy, but like in the actual like mythology of it, in several indigenous cultures, they have like this dark winged hominoid that comes to like warn of foreboding tragedies, and Mothman fits that to a T. And there's also instances of other Mothman-like creatures that go by other names that have happened in Africa, Asia. So I kind of feel like it's that popping up, and that just happens to be like our version of that mythological creature. But I mean, at the same time, it's like there's so many other things that it could have been that I don't think we'll truly know, but there has been Mothman sightings happening around O'Hare Airport in Chicago. Like I've been tracking them for the past like year, which I find fascinating. So I don't know if that's like we should be like avoiding that airport, but I'm like, it's interesting because several like pilots have seen this. It's the same description as the Mothman, the dark winged hominoid with the glowing red eyes, which, I mean,
oh, no way.
Yeah. So, and there's been other sightings in other countries that I picked up on, but I know like in America, it's like around Chicago. And if he was around Baltimore, I mean, no one's told me. So,
right, exactly.
Because I mean, I would like to get his credit card back. So,
Platinum Amex, love it.
Yes. Oh, of course he has that. I mean, he's a mythological creature with an unlimited bank account. Like, let's go.
Exactly.
I'll spend your magic at Nordstrom.
All right, ad break. I gotta pay for all this damn coffee I'm drinking and tea I'm spilling. It's me, Zenobia Darling. So, as many of you know, I'm more than just a podcaster, stand-up comic, and drag queen. I'm also a very accomplished painter and photographer, and you can check it all out on ZenobiaDarlingCreative.com. I have an art blog on there sponsored by the Harford County Cultural Arts Board, and just all my paintings, photography, you get podcast stuff. I have an art film that premiered in September that you can buy on there too. So make sure you check it out. It supports me, supports the podcast. All right, so let's get back to the podcast.
Okay, so let's transition a little bit. Actually, no, this is on track because drag queens are spooky, and I'm a spooky drag queen. You are obsessed with drag queens. It's one of my favorite things is drag and talking drag. RuPaul's Drag Race.
I love drag queens.
I will say I haven't been watching Drag Race since I think Sasha Velour won, so I just kind of got over it. But again, and Dragula too. I mean, I'm kind of over Dragula. I'm just over drag competition reality shows. I think it's time that I don't know. I want drag queens to be more like aspirational lifestyle. Like let's incorporate them on Bravo. Like most drag queens are compelling just creatures in general. And I don't know. So I know that we have like the number one Tammie Brown as like both of our favorites. So I know you met her.
Tammie Brown is a legend.
She's
a legend.
Her.
She was on my podcast. And I haven't met her in person, but she was on my podcast.
God, I fucking love her. Like she was my favorite queen. Like when the first runway on Drag Race where she went up the back staircase and RuPaul was like, she just exited on my stairs. And I'm like, that's why I love Tammie. Like she doesn't give a fuck. Like what is it about her that like makes you like love her?
That Tammie Brown is unapologetically who she is. I always say that one thing I love in anybody is that quiet confidence where you know who you are and you're not trying to impress anybody. You're not trying to fit a mold. You're like, here I am, take it or leave it. But what I love about Tammie is that the here I am, take it or leave it is not aggressive. It isn't like a, well, fuck you if you don't like me. She's very much like, this is who I am. And, you know, the fact that I always say the fact that she was the second queen voted out at this point 15 years ago in season 1.
Yeah.
And she is still one of the most, that says it all.
Yeah. Like she's a legend.
Know?
She's like, and like if I'm like feeling it or I'm having a rough day, I will just Google or YouTube Tammie Brown and just watch whatever's on there, because she's just like the stuff she says. She's quirky. She's also a little spooky, which I really enjoy. And I wish she would go a little bit more spookier with her drag. But like, she just, I don't know. She makes me happy. And then my other favorite is, I actually saw her last time I was in Vegas, was Chanel. Like, iconic.
Oh, yeah.
Like, she's, let's see, Chanel, Tammie, and then Nina Flowers are probably like my top 3 all-time Drag Race queens.
And I think part of what, a little bit of the parallel with Housewives, what's happened to me with Drag Race is that there's just too much. So I don't watch at one point I was watching UK, but at this point I don't keep up with the international versions. I don't keep up with the world. I don't even All Stars. I'm like, all I watch is the regular US because it's too much. It's overkill.
Yeah. It's turning into like America's Next Top Model, because I felt like that got so like, I mean, they're following the same brand. I mean, it's the, ooh. Ooh, hey. Of course they didn't want us talking about Drag Race, of course.
RuPaul is fracking away.
Exactly. I'm going to leave that in too, because I'm like, that is some RuPaul shit with her sniper bullshit. Like, But no,
we got the chop.
I agree with you. Like, it's too much. And then I'm really pissed because I know so many legendary drag queens that have continued auditioning for Drag Race, and they always get overlooked. I mean, Baltimore has never had a drag queen actually be on any of those shows, and that pisses me off. I thought, going back, like I have auditioned for Dracula, like I thought I would be the one. No. And then it was like other queens, like I know one of my friends I was helping her with her audition tape, and it's like, of course, all of us keep getting overlooked. So there is a little bit of like resentment within the drag community, especially here in Baltimore, about it. Because also, I mean, Baltimore and drag go hand in hand. I mean, I'll tell you about it later, but like, John Waters and Divine are from here, and most of us have that quality. And then, especially on Dracula, it's like they're constantly talking about all that stuff, and it's like the audition monologue was actually like Female Trouble, Divine's monologue from it. And it's like, okay, well, let's actually cast a Baltimore creative. Let's cast one of us. And that's something that I have noticed, where it's like a lot of us are kind of like, oh, we're over it. We're gonna do our own bullshit.
Yeah, no, good for you. But I think Drag Race is another one of those things that with Saturn and Pisces. I think that's going to have to either start changing, or it's just going to start losing a little bit of luster.
Yeah. And like, I mean, we all know RuPaul's a terrible person. So I'm like, we all know that. I'm just going to say that. That'll be my opinion, not yours.
Is there, not that I'm asking you to kiss and tell, but is there like a personal anecdote there, or is it more just things that you've heard?
Stuff I've heard, queens that that have interacted with her. Also, a lot of the newer Drag Race girls that when they come and like perform here, there hasn't been good vibing with the local drag queens, which is something that I think is very telling. And also, I mean, Drag Race, it's a drag competition show with drag queens with money, and that's not the spirit of drag. Like, I mean, my art film that I made for the Art of Drag, it's like, I'm putting Dollar General makeup on and wearing like a Goodwill dress that I got. And it's like, that's the spirit of drag. Like, we're just kind of like, having our creativity. And even though some of us now have more money and we're not like in poverty, it's like, we still have that quality, and drag shouldn't be synonymous with having a lot of money. Like, it shouldn't. It should be creative and freedom. And when that capitalistic influence happens, it just pisses me off. And I'm like, that's why I love the early season, especially season 1, because it's like they had that quality, whereas now it's gone.
Yeah, and I recall reading how some of the queens on All Stars, they will go $20,000 in debt to have all these outfits made for them. And to your point, I mean, that's not very realistic for I think for the average drag queen to have $20K, even a $20K credit card limit.
Yeah, like it's not happening. Like,
Yeah.
And there's more compelling, I don't know, like there's more compelling stuff that happens off camera that I know that they're leaving out. Because I'm like, I mean, drag queens backstage is like, that's the best thing ever. I mean, I always say, if you could ever go backstage and see all of us getting ready, that's the real show. That's the bullshit that everyone needs to see. So, I sent you my art film, right? Did you watch it?
You sent me the link. I haven't seen it yet. But
it's on because it's like it's definitely the backstage, and you'll see the Baltimore Queens. But oh my god! And one of them, I'll tell you it off mic. I'll edit it out. But and honestly, they kind of skipped over DC and Philly too, which is another weird thing. Where I'm like,
oh, true.
Like there's never like there was Tatiana because I remember. When I would go dance at Town in DC, I remember when she went to film the second season, and I remember like it was hush hush, and she just was like, I don't know, like it's probably gonna be nothing. And then like I remember that, but that's the only DC queen that's been there too. And I know DC drag's different than Baltimore, but I mean, I don't know, like I want to see us represented if that makes sense. That's why I'm pissed.
Yeah, no, I get it. Maybe it'll be because I know that on Sasha Colby's season, they had like 3 Connecticut queens. Maybe at some point they'll be like, we're going to have a bunch of Maryland queens all at once or something. Who knows? Because
I'm like, I don't know, like Potomac I like because it's kind of representing, but then I'm like, still not Baltimore. All right, so let's get into Mariah Carey. I know you're obsessed with her. I'm obsessed with trolling her and hating on her because I think she is, I don't know, she's a queen, and you know, like I can punch up to her as a comic. So I know like tell me your story with like Mariah, because I know that you like I think like I feel like Lady Gaga and Madonna, how you feel about Mariah Carey. Is that true? Is that how you feel about her? And I consider her a drag queen too.
Oh, absolutely. She definitely has all that over the topness. I mean, the thing with me and Mariah is that I think, you know, I definitely think that the music that we listen to from like the ages of like 14 to 20 really shapes us. So when I first got into music, into popular music, was when Daydream came out, the album, which had Fantasy, Once We Gay.
Oh, yes.
So like, you got to understand, like my developing brain was completely shaped by that. And then Butterfly and Honey and like, so I'm very much in that late 90s, early 2000s Mariah era. Modern Mariah, like her last album, Caution, I can't even name a single song.
You know, I'm like, just go out in December, sing your Christmas stuff, cash the check, and just kind of like, I like it when she's a bit removed and she comes out for special appearances now.
Yes. But one thing that I always loved about her, that she's finally getting her flowers for this now, but back in the 90s, she did not. She writes her own lyrics. She produces her own remixes. Like that's finally now things that people know. But back in the 90s, people really thought that she was, and I'm not throwing any shade at Celine Dion or anything, but
people
thought she was like but you know, people thought she was like a Celine Dion where she would just go into the studio and sing. And I don't mean just, I mean, she has, you know, pipes, but Mariah was involved in so much more than just singing.
Yes.
And also she has some very clever lyrics.
Yes.
She's a very clever lyricist.
Yes. Because I read somewhere where she will go in and re-record lyrics for the remix. And I'm like, like, that's not just like some random bitch singing. Like that's someone who like, this is her job. She's showing up. She's putting in like 10 times more effort than most singers do. And I'm like, that's what makes her Mariah. Like she also got a tick though. Apparently that's what Wendy says. She got a tick.
Oh, right. It's a tick boom. But yeah, the thing that's weird that when you listen to her remixes, it isn't just, you know, Hex Hector remixing her vocals. Like she goes in and also records like a different hook. And so that's what I always loved about her. And I will say, strangely enough, although I am a fan, I've never seen her live.
Oh, I was just going to ask you, how many times have you seen her live? But you've never seen her live? Oof.
I have no desire to, just because Mariah to me live is just not exciting.
That's true.
And I've seen videos on TikTok. And again, I'm not disparaging her, but of her latest residency, which is happening right now, April 2024. And a lot of it is backing, you know, pre-recorded vocals.
Is she like standing there and like not really giving?
Right.
Because there's a time and a place for that. Like, I know the Britney Vegas residency. I mean, I saw that 3 or 4 times. And, like, I went there specifically to see Trainwreck Britney, which is sad. I mean, sometimes she killed it. I mean, she killed it a few times. Of other times, her shift was over. And you could tell, which, poor Britney. But I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I don't have that love anymore. Like, I'm kind of like, especially after everything with Britney, I'm like, I don't want to go there to hate on somebody. Although, I don't know. It's still fun though.
Yeah. I will say my favorite, which is, I mean, this was a televised performance, but my favorite Mariah moment of all time was I think in 2008, Good Morning America. She was singing live one of her songs that I really like, Touch My Body.
Yes.
And I guess at one point, one of the background vocalist sang the wrong part, and Mariah effortlessly goes, "Stop singing my part now, baby."
In
and
perfect key, perfect pitch.
Yes.
God, that's a queen right there. That is a fucking queen.
That's what I mean. How can you not love her? She's telling her background vocalist to stop singing her part while effortlessly blending it into the song. I mean, that's why we love her.
Yes, I mean she's iconic. So, like, I know since you live in Vegas, do you go to like see the residencies and see the concerts a lot? Because I know that's what I would do. Like,
absolutely.
Who was your favorite?
Well, I saw Christina 2019.
Ooh, was that good?
And the thing about Christina, you know, her vocals really, I mean, they were live the whole time. That was great. Last month I saw Kylie.
Oh my god! Kylie Minogue. Oh my god! I fucking love her. If I was in when her Madonna sang, I probably would have like died. It was like no, Kylie's the best.
I had an amazing time at Kylie. It was an amazing night. And the venue is so intimate that, you know, it's not like, that's one thing I love about Vegas, that these aren't huge arenas. They're small, intimate venues. So it kind of felt like a very large house party was the vibe of Kylie. And what I loved about it, it was like, I would say the Kylie audience was like 80% gay men.
Of course.
20% heterosexual Australian women in their 50s.
That actually sounds like a good time, though.
Isn't that the best time ever?
That sounds the best.
It really was.
Did you ever see Lady Gaga's residency?
I saw Jazz and Piano.
Oh, that was so
September
good.
Of 2023.
That was so fucking good. Yes. I love it because that's like as much as I love like Gaga doing her pop stuff. When she does her jazz stuff, I'm like, that's the best. Although Enigma was and the Chromatica Ball, like I saw many dates of that, and I was like, I don't know.
I didn't see that.
It was the best because I love it when she goes dark.
Yeah, and just hearing like you know, the jazz versions of Poker Face and Stupid Love and Paparazzi. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she did a fantastic job.
God, I love her.
One of the great things I love about Vegas is, being able to, you know, all of that is a 15-minute drive from where I live.
Excellent. So because you're like what, in Henderson? So you're like on the west side of the valley? You're on the east side. I have a bit of Vegas.
Southeast of the Strip.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so you can be there. No, I love it. All right, so let's transition. We've been talking for like 40 minutes. Let's get into my astrology. I'm an open book.
Yeah.
I figured I have some things I figured I would ask you. So last year, I'm probably going to edit this out because I don't know if there's anything in my chart with that, but like I don't know. It's been an interesting like year and a half.
Because one thing that's interesting is that one thing that started for you, I want to say it was definitely last year, but let me tell you the exact month, which is a very positive transit. Yeah. So one thing that started for you around late June, early July of 2023, and would have been quite strong August and September of last year.
Oh yeah.
This year, very strong now, May, June, and then also December of this year, transiting Uranus 60 degrees away from your Venus. So 60 degrees is beneficial and harmonious. When Uranus is 60 degrees away from something, it energizes, electrifies, activates. So it's almost like your Venus and your Chiron are getting a bit of an electric jolt, and you're supposed to be doing a lot of work on, as it relates to your Venus and your Chiron, trying new alternative ways of connecting in a relationship.
Yes, that's what's been happening. Like,
so that's actually very good. And then not to mention too, not about a relationship, but career-wise, you're about to go into a very, very positive, abundant cycle for your career.
I feel that. Like, I started a new job.
But as far as your career stuff, so one thing that's happening, well, the main thing that's happening is that on July 1st, of 2024, transiting Jupiter goes into your 10th house of career. So that happens roughly every 12 years. Jupiter is opportunities, new beginnings, growth, expansion. And in the 10th house, depending on what you're doing, because context always matters, if you're working a 9 to 5, it'll look different than if you're an entrepreneur. But ultimately, Jupiter in the 10th brings more visibility. It can bring press. It can bring more clients. But career stuff starts to really take off. And that for you is from July 2024 to July 2025. So you have that 12-month period.
Okay, that I'm feeling because I've been applying for like residencies and stuff because I'm trying to get more, like I've completely shifted from drag performing and I kind of switched into stand-up comedy and now I have the podcast, but I really feel like live performing is kind of done for me. Whereas, and now I just want to be a painter and photographer and do like all that stuff. So I'm definitely transitioning into more like art and painting and all that side. And just kind of, Zenobia is always going to be within me. I mean, she never dies. She just morphs and evolves.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Well, and, you have your chart. What's so interesting about it is that you have your 11th and your 5th house are both packed. The 5th house is a house of creativity that, and creativity is intellectual. It can be artistic, but creating, the 5th house is where we create things.
Yeah.
So you are a creator in so many ways. And then the 11th house is the house of whatever is alternative, progressive, different, outside the box. So you, as this creator that pushes the envelope, that is exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And then the other thing that's really wonderful about your chart, you have the sun practically on top of the midheaven. So, the midheaven is where your 10th house begins. And that means that the purpose of your chart, you are meant to put yourself out there. You need to be visible and you need to be sharing your skills, your talents with the world. And that visibility, I think also, in this summer, there's something happening where your visibility increases greatly.
I can see that because I've also I'm kind of shifting to New York City. Like I definitely I was thinking either like New York or LA again. And I'm like, I miss New York. And it's one of those things where I've been slowly planting seeds for the art stuff up there. And I also think I can get bigger in New York, being an artist. And that's where my influences are. And I definitely can see where something like that's going to be popping off.
And then, there's a little bit down the road. So it's not happening anytime soon, but there's going to be the biggie. Because I'm just looking something up as I'm doing math in my head because, yes, 2028. Yeah. Transiting Pluto is going to be 120 degrees away from your midheaven, which again, the midheaven is that very sensitive point where the 10th house of career begins. It's going to be 120 degrees away, which 120 degrees is a very beneficial angle to your midheaven and your sun, 2028 and 2029. Those are, so what you need to understand is that basically everything you do between now and specifically between now and February of 2028 is of utmost importance because once we get to the spring of 28, career-wise, everything elevates in a way that it's never happened to you before and never will.
That makes that okay. That's yeah. I can
that is your golden era, and it's a 2-year period. We're talking February 28 to around January 2030. But that is when everything comes together and falls into place. But again, the universe, if you will, or whatever you want to call it, can only play around with what you give it. You see?
Yeah.
So everything you're doing in the next 4 years is going to build up to that moment.
Oh, that I can
that
definitely,
is a
I can
once
see
in
that.
a lifetime.
I can see it. Because it's it definitely is with art too, because just how quickly everything's falling together since I made that shift. And since I kind of I let the club drag performing die, I can't do it anymore. And, I'm going to paint no matter what. Like, that's my favorite thing. So, I mean, you can see, I mean, I don't know. I have a bunch of paintings behind me, but it's like I'm actually in my like hometown art studio. Like I have 2 studios here. I have one in Baltimore and one up here. And it's like, I mean, I'm looking around and I probably have like 50 paintings in each studio. Like,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So, yeah. And that is a once in a lifetime transit. You've never had it before. You'll never have it again. And that's huge.
Excellent. That makes me happy. All right. So then one of the other questions I had was, I remember you saying the paranormal is in my chart. Like you kind of saw that in it. Like can you like expand upon that? Cause I was trying to explain to one of my like paranormal friends about that. And like, everyone's like fascinated by that. So I was like, let's ask you again.
Yes. So let me ask you this because this is what it touches on. Is your paranormal work one where you connect with people who have passed?
Yes, I can definitely I kind of make friends with them. Like I was at the theater that I was telling you about earlier. There's Jeremiah. He was a jazz musician. He was murdered in the theater in the 1920s. He's my best friend now. Like every time I go in there, he's like messing stuff. He's always coming through the spirit box, wanting to tip me $1, comes through. He's like, $1. Hey, Derek. Like stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, so like I can, and I'm kind of like, okay, he's my friend. Like, and also the theater is like, I mean, we all go there to have fun and he did too. So it's like, and plus where he was murdered at, it's not going to be the VIP area. So I kind of joke with him. I'm like, you're the VIP ghost.
So the reason why I brought up when I did your reading about the paranormal is because you have an opposition between Pluto and Mercury. And Pluto is a planet that, among other things, relates to death in astrology. And I have found that when people have Pluto-Mercury contacts, they have the ability for mediumship.
Okay.
Because Mercury is communication, Pluto is people who have passed on or death. And so the ability to speak to those who have passed shows up. Now, it could be when you have a Pluto-Mercury contact like you do, or if you have Mercury in the 8th house belongs to Pluto. So it's not like the only thing that means psychic ability or mediumship is Pluto-Mercury, but that's a very, very strong sign that you have that gift.
Okay, because definitely, I mean, I mean, even the other day at work, I'm doing an exhibition on. Her name's Blaze Starr. She was like a Baltimore burlesque queen, and we have all of her like personal artifacts in the gallery. And sure enough, stuff starts happening, and like my boss was like, she definitely is becoming more aware of it because of me just being there. And I wrote the spirit box out, and sure enough, like a woman came through and said Blaze Starr's sister's name, and I was like, I think it's her. And it's stuff like that where it's like this stuff just like happens, and I'm just like the conduit. Like I'm just like, let's roll with it. It doesn't freak me out. So I mean, oh yeah, I love the paranormal. It's my fave.
Yeah, and also I think one thing that really actually helps you is that because you have Mercury in Taurus and the Moon in Capricorn, it makes it so that you stay grounded through all of that. Like it doesn't get you all discombobulated.
No, because I've had a few instances where I've actually had to do like clearings and stuff, and like, I mean, full disclosure, I'm a witch. Like I do that style of spirituality, and I know how to protect myself. I know how to like banish spirits from the place, and that's something that like me and my team have done before. And I noticed that they all say that when like I had to deal with like this pedophile Catholic priest ghost in someone's basement, and like I like stepped up, and they all were like, "Oh, you weren't like freaked out?" And I was like, "No, I wanted this dude to get the fuck out of my space." So it's like stuff like that where I noticed where like I definitely have more of like a level head when interacting with the ghost, especially when it's like a little bit of like a darker, like more lower vibrational being. So,
yeah, and that's definitely one of your gifts. And I think also then with that Sun in Gemini, you're able to get information and translate it and pass it on to whoever needs it.
Okay. Excellent. Wow, that was really good. I appreciate you answering my questions with that. So wrapping up, let's turn it on you. Have you ever had any experiences with the paranormal? I remember we were driving home you were dropping me off at the hotel, and you were driving home when we had a coffee date, and we saw a Janet flight leave McCarran. And I remember like queening out about that. So you got to see me witness like No, I've never seen a UFO. I want to, but that was like my first like foray into like seeing actual like UFO mythology in real life. So, have you ever had any experience with the paranormal or aliens or UFOs or cryptids, anything like that?
So I will say there's two instances where I have seen things that I would classify as UFOs in the sense that the movements were just like nothing before. One was, so I'm originally from Argentina. In the like January of 2000, we had rented a home like 30 minutes outside the capital. So it was like suburbs. And I remember it was around 7 o'clock in the evening. It was still daylight because in Argentina, January is summer. And I just remember seeing this orange, silent ball of light just basically go from, from my right to my left, and just the speed at which it was moving.
Yeah.
Because I would see airplanes there all the time.
Especially if you're near a capital city. I mean, I'm sure they have like the international airport, and that's like the main entry and exit point to the country. So
yeah. So standing in that backyard in that summer house, I saw planes all the time. This was like and also the orange light was larger in size than a plane, completely, and just the speed at which it was going. So that was one. And then about 3 years ago, it was April of 2021. And I have this one on video. It's a short video, but
I think you sent it to me. Yeah. Is it the one? Yes. Yeah. That was I remember seeing that and I was like, that's very compelling because like, I don't know, the light, I looked at it and I was like, that's a UFO. Like everything was very credible about it.
Yeah. So I was in Palm Springs with Jess of Hot Takes and Deep Dives, and we were walking to a drag brunch. So it was like noon.
Course. I love it. I love it.
Of course we were. Jasmine Masters was performing. Jessica Wilde. It was a really good.
Legendary Queens. Oh, that was probably a good show too.
It was a really good show. And so we're walking, so again, it's like 12:30, broad daylight. Mm-hmm. And then for some reason, I happen to look up and I see, and it's on video, but I see these two metallic, they weren't lights, they were like metallic objects. Mm-hmm. But again, the way they were moving, and it's on video, it's like they were kind of hovering down, but then they start moving right. And they're not balloons because they're not static and moving. They're kind of like doing, one's moving in front of the other. No idea what that was, but I caught that on video.
Excellent. I love it. I love it. I love it. That's like,
yeah.
Ooh.
I've had no experience. And I gotta be honest with you. As much as I'm fascinated by the paranormal, unlike you, I think that if I were to have any experience where I encountered any kind of apparition or heard voices, I think that would freak me out a little bit.
Well, the first few times I saw like an actual full body apparition or like I still can get a little freaked out by it. Like, and I kind of have my boundary up with it where I'm like, all right, I don't want to see you. I don't want to like look up and there's like a spirit there. Like that would freak me the fuck out. But yeah, like you got to go to the haunted museum. Like Zach does a good job of keeping that bullshit up there. So that place is so dark. Like, oh my God, like there was, it's too much sometimes.
Well, let me ask you this, though, as somebody who's very well versed in this kind of stuff, what are the odds of a spirit attaching to you?
It can happen. Like, I know Jeremiah, the spirit I talked about earlier, he kind of has an attachment to me because he's followed me a few times. It can happen. I mean, and it can happen with good spirits, bad spirits. And I wouldn't say bad or good. It's more like higher vibrational or lower vibrational. And you naturally always have your ancestor spirits around you. You naturally have like your spirit guides and whatnot that kind of keep out for that. I always say when you mess with the paranormal, just so that doesn't happen, make sure you close the session, say goodbye anytime you use a Ouija board or a spirit box or anything like that. That kind of keeps it like, hey, like those are my boundaries. Because also you're the more energetic being. You're the more powerful being. You can set your boundaries, and most spirits, they listen to that. And I mean, and you're never really going to run into like, I mean, I've run into a few really low vibrational beings that don't follow boundaries, but most I mean, they're humans, but they're dead. They're not assholes. They're going to abide by that, and they're not really going to follow you. But I mean, it can happen. It is a risk you take ghost hunting. So
I hear you. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe I'll check out the haunted. I haven't been yet. It's not that far away from where I live.
Yeah. I don't know. And like, I always say, like, there's two types of reality shows I like: paranormal reality television and like aspirational lifestyle, which is like Real Housewives. And Zach brings in a lot of Bravo bullshit into his...
Oh, really?
Oh my God. The whole Haunted Museum is basically Lisa Vanderpump's model for Sir, where he's using Ghost Adventures to plug the show. And you're basically going there because you want to... Because he lives in... To all my ghost hunter friends, Zach, even though he's like a douchebag, and we all like make fun of him because I think he's very antagonistic with spirits and not ethical when he ghost hunts, whereas, you know, I'm very ethical. I don't know, like, he brings in a lot of that stuff, and he lives that aspirational lifestyle that a lot of ghost hunters want to live. They all want to get paid to ghost hunt in these amazing places and be on TV. So I don't know. It's interesting.
I gotcha.
So
yeah.
Oh, it is.
Okay.
I will tell you, if you go, bring a crystal, bring something, and don't fuck with the Dibbit box. Don't fuck with the Dibbit box, and don't. Yeah, and the circular art gallery can be a little dicey too, but yeah, it's
okay.
It's weird. All right, so wrapping up, I got to ask you, since you love drag, and I mean, I am a Baltimore creative, what is your favorite John Waters movie? I know you have to have them. I know he's been in your lexicon.
Well, you're gonna kill me. I have never watched a full John Waters. Now
What?
I've seen clips.
Oh,
I know,
blasphemous! Oh my God!
I know. But I have to be honest, because I don't want to come up here and be like, yeah, crybaby. Like, I've seen clips of movies, but I've never seen a full John Waters movie.
Oh my God.
Oh, so of course,
boy.
I know who he is.
Yeah.
I know who Divine is, you know, like, yeah. So which one would you recommend that I watch?
Let's see. Early John Waters, Female Trouble is by far one of my favorites. That's Divine, who is like this like early influencer who loves to do crime. Like, I mean, and Dracula steals right from it. So it definitely has like, it's very good. Later stuff, Serial Mom is another one that's like, like Kathleen Turner is the star of it. That one's really good too. All right, so where can we find you? Where can we get in touch with you to get a reading? So I'm sending all my little darlings to you because you were one of my favorite astrologers. So
thank you. Well, you can find, so my website is astrologywithandy.com. That's where you can book readings. You can also, I have 2 self-study online classes that you can take. I also do offer private one-on-one live classes as well. But for that, you can message me on Instagram or email me, but astrologywithandy.com. And the only social media I have is Instagram, and my handle there is all one word, Astrology with Andy.
perfect. All right, guys, go to it. And with that, I'm beaming back up to the UFO. I got to go back to Maryland. Bye.
See ya.